What's up, party people? You have Survivor Teek here again, and if you didn't catch my first episode, I go over the episode in general, the strategy, what's exciting about it. And here in my second episode for week one, I'm going to go more into the Edgic. And so, for those who don't know what this means, it's a term that's been created, and I believe it's Survivor originally created it. And it's a portmanteau of editing and logic. And so, based on the edit, what can we tell about the players? And so, this is a very common phenomenon. It kind of happens in season one about trying to read the edit to see who wins. And so, unlike Big Brother, Survivor is a show that has already happened. The editors presumably know who has won, and they're going to try to carve out a narrative for that winner so it's satisfying at the end. And so, you can't edit something that doesn't exist, but you can start to highlight more positive attributes, maybe lower negative attributes, have more visibility to the player. And so there's lots of things producers can do to really showcase who their winner can be. So when we get to the end of the season, it's satisfying. The worst thing you ever want as a watcher is to not have any idea how this person won this game. And so there's going to be at least some content and some visibility. For those who watched this most recent season of South Africa Survivor, but I think we can all say in the Edgicing community that we had no idea how that happened. But U.S. Survivor tends to be a little bit more commonplace. And so the way that I like to edit it, I focus less on, and you'll hear these terms in the community, CP, OTT, MOR. CP means complex personality. It's one of the better types of edits you can get. And so really what you're trying to do is you're trying to see what the players like and which of these categories they fall under. So complex personality, MOR is middle of road, OTT is over the top, and then UTR is under the radar, INV is invisible. You start to see these, and then you have them with a numerical code after it, which is the visibility, 1 through 5. 5 is very visible, so like a CP5 is like, yo, this person, like we get to understand what's going down with them. And then you have tone, positive tone, negative tone, mixed tone, or toneless. So the classic, like really good edit is something like a CPP4 or a CPP5, which means that you have a positive tone, you understand what's going through, and you're pretty visible. One of the less desirable tones is like an OTTN, which means that you're over the top and you're being negative and you're just being seen as like a one-sided character. So there's that element. I tend to focus less on that. And really what I try to think about is, okay, here's this storyline of Survivor. Here's the base level. Here's the narrative that's happening. Here's the basic strategy. Sure, this person got chosen over to the summit. Sure, this person was a target for being voted out. They're part of the story normally, but then whose story is like above what it ought to be? It's that quantum of difference, that delta that's most interesting to me. And conversely, if somebody seems to be important in the storyline, but we're not hearing from them or seeing from them, that's very negative. And so I'm trying to understand where that delta is. Some players are just better narrators. Some players really do have a good pulse of the game and they're in the middle, but they end up having a demise later on. So there's lots that throw you off, but I'll give you my overall top 1 to 16. Rest in peace, Sarah and Abraham. I'm sorry you couldn't make it through the first Edgic analysis, but I'll run through it. So number 1, I actually have Tiffany. And so this is probably a little bit surprising because she was a target in the first tribal council for the Yellow Tribe. Tiffany got not only 1, but 2 of these backstories. And so this was like a video clip of her past. We had one about how she was an alternate and she was called to Fiji last minute. And she always wants to go on Survivor. And this was in fact the 3rd person that we heard from the entire episode. We then got this really amazing confessional from her about how she was a pre-vivor and about her battle with breast cancer at the age of 32 and ovarian cancer and how she's really overcome that and how she wants the pre-vivor to become a survivor. Not only that, not only from these 2 like really amazing confessionals that she was given, she was the target and she survived. And they really put a lot of emphasis in making it seem more that she was a target, even though it was almost in fact was a unanimous decision for Abraham to go. And so I think they really tried to push a bit of a target on Tiffany to say, look, she is overcoming from day one. She is a pre-vivor. She almost wasn't on this season. Her narrative stock is absolutely huge if she wins this entire season, and it would feel truly satisfying that you have presumably the weakest person from the weakest tribe overcoming, and that's what she does as the alternate. That's what she does as the pre-vivor. I don't see how anybody has a better edit at this stage. She clearly has good strategic alliances with Evie and Lyanna to be able to survive that vote. She had great second person visibility, or SPV, where they called her a ball of energy. We don't want her to go. Even Obochie was vouching for her. So Tiffany's, I believe, a strong number one for me. And it's hard for me to see any other player that had as good of a storyline, which really feels like what Survivor is focusing on, especially in this fast-paced game and this implementation of backstories borrowing from Oz Survivor. Tiffany's my number one. My top number four are the four people who all got confessionals at the start of the episode. And so these first confessionals, so this is when they're on the boat and they had like a little bit to say. And so this was in order: Evie, Danny, Tiff, and JD. And so these four comprise my top four for a reason. Being heard from early on, being heard from soon, shows that you are an important player in this game. There's sometimes decoys, but they tend to go deep. So number two is JD. JD had that first confessional. We heard a lot from him. This episode almost felt from his narrative. In the summit, we heard it more from his perspective. He was the one that we didn't really see when the other two from Danny and Xander picked. We still don't know about JD. We were invested in JD's storyline to see whether or not he risked it. Is he a good liar? Is he not? And then again, he was painted as a target when he even wasn't a target. Brad was the target. So they're trying to show JD being a bit of a survivor, even though he wasn't even the target that episode. And people are comparing him to David versus Goliath Nick when he won that season, where it was a little bit of a dopey first episode, making some errors, but you kind of lean into it. We had a lot of really good winner quotes from JD. We had him build a fire at the start and talk about the importance of fire, which is so critical in Survivor, especially when you have the Final Four fire making challenge. And then you also had him have that huge confessional about his background. He saw all these photos from him as a child, about his growth and how he wants to really be himself. He talked about Ozzy and Wu, which I picked up on, and they're both famous second placers who were up against a very strong first place winner in both of their respective seasons, who were really strategically outmaneuvered the strength. And so is this something that we might see? Does he end up with somebody who strategically outmaneuvers him at the end finale, but we feel for him in a close vote? I think so, but I think JD has to be up there. He has this additional vote. He has Brad and Genie and Shannon it up with him. He has the strategic elements to move forward in this game, plus his advantage. He's very well positioned, even though he seemed like he had a weak first episode. I think that's just a narrative playing a trick on us. So Tiff and JD, I know you may have almost gone in the casual viewer's eyes, but you guys are in the top two of my leaderboard right now. Number three is Danny. We didn't see a lot from the Blue Tribe, but Danny had a pretty good narrative. You could feel his strength. You could feel like he was kind of commenting on the scene. He had a couple good confessionals about, I'm an NFL player, but during quarantine, I was just watching Survivor and learning it. You can tell he has a good grip on the game. You got to hear a little bit about his protect strategy, even though I didn't agree with it. I thought at least he was able to chat about it. And you saw a little bit about the tribe dynamics where Sydney and Heather and Erica started to really chat about how, Danny and Deshawn have been doing a good job around camp. We heard from him. We got a lot of side shots of him too. You want to look for that to see who this camera's showcasing. When he's on the boat, you see kind of Danny with his dreads kind of rolling along. You saw a lot of him in that challenge as well, really helping the blue team. So Danny's number three. We just didn't see enough about the Blue Tribe, but he has a decent edit that can really pick up. Number four is Evie. People have Evie higher. I have Evie at 4. Evie has the first confessional of the game and a great confessional. Evie has a little bit of that back and forth with Jeff about, as a queer woman, I'm okay with this. You get to hear about her Harvard history. You get to hear a little bit about who she is. So great. PhD researcher. And she has a pulse of the tribe dynamics. What I'm missing from Evie a little bit is I want to see a little bit more about her, just a little bit more about what she feels about the others in her tribe. You just kind of saw her strategically chatting. We didn't really get to understand exactly how she felt. Why exactly she was working with Tiffany, we just have to hear a little bit. I'm worried about the men working against us. She's, I think, perfectly acceptable at number 4. I want to see Evie be a little bit more complex. She did still seem a little bit more simple, but she did have high visibility. I see her as a narrator this season. She's an incredible dialogue, better than me, obviously. She's an incredible talker, great dialogue, great narrator. I think she'll be an important player this game, but she didn't really have anything that struck me as I deserve to be the winner of Survivor. She just seems to be a somebody who's incredibly smart, a super fan who might make it in D. Number 5 is an interesting pick for me. I picked Xander. And I picked Xander mainly because of how he articulated himself after that protect and risk challenge. And also the way that he was just, we all kind of trusted Xander. Let's ship him out. He's been given a very clean edit. We didn't really see Xander betray Abraham. And this is that editing element that I think is important. We heard later on that Abraham did trust Xander the most. We didn't really see Xander talk to Evie. I think Xander was protected from all of the potential betrayal because I think they're trying to edit him to be a very positive, good kind of character this episode. So I really like Xander. He may not have the visibility of an Evie, which is why Evie's higher, but Xander has been, protected by the edit despite him risking his vote. So I have Xander at 5. I like Xander's odds. 6 for me is Erica. And so we didn't see a lot from Erica. The thing is, we didn't really have any reason to see anything about Blue, specifically anybody but Nasir, who kind of made his kind of silly decision to throw those two under the bus. Erica had quite a bit of visibility on a rewatch. You heard her have a couple really good confessionals. You had her have a very good pulse of the tribe and talking about the challenge. And she was really helping to narrate the Blue tribe as a secondary narrator other than Danny. You did see Erica do really well in the puzzle challenge as well, and it did showcase that in the challenge. And so I think Erica, although she wasn't too visible, she was visible enough and positive enough for me to kind of keep her in the mix. And we'll see when her tribe picks tribal for the first time how influential she is. And she seems to be positioned well in the middle of the tribe. If she does want to save this year, I think Erica is the one to most likely do it. Sydney, the Lost and Ev at 7. Sydney had this interesting montage where she's just like, I love adventure. And I would do more adventure if I could use a credit card. And, I've been to 49 countries. And so we did hear quite a bit from Sydney. Sydney's also the rat for Nasir, who talked to Deshawn. So you got to see Sydney in the tribe dynamics quite a bit. Again, we didn't have to hear that from Sydney at all. So it is quite interesting to see Sydney come up. So I have Sydney at 7. At the higher end, but to be in a tribe that doesn't go to tribal and to have good positive content and to really understand who you are, I think that's really important and good first episode that still keeps them with viable chances. 8, I have Genie. And so Genie was a bit of a mixed case. Genie has this incredible and beautiful confessional about her backstory, and she also had a really good kind of start of the episode as well when she's talking to Jeff about being part of the season and everything else. So Jean doesn't have a lot of content outside of that. We see her a little bit passive. We don't hear from her about why she did the Ricard vote, which I think is negative towards her strategy. But we did see her somebody who could work well with others. And I think Jeannie's backstory, to hear that was quite important. We wouldn't just hear that in a silo. And I do know we did hear Sarah's backstory, but I think it was just to give Sarah some good content for her one episode. But it sounds like Genie gets along well with the tribe. I think she'll be an under-the-radar player, so I don't have her ranked too high, but I think she'll be an important decision-maker and somebody who we're meant to feel for and cheer for as the audience moving forwards. 9 is going to be my controversial pick. I have Shan. People have Shan as number 1. People like Shan's kind of like evil theme music and getting along. I saw Shan have a negative episode. Shan was in the middle. And messily in the middle. Like, Shan built an alliance with Ricard and Sarah and betrayed it, and she sided with probably the side that she maybe shouldn't have sided with. I think she made a poor decision that episode, and we got Shan kind of being like the better JD, and like I can outplay him. I think we're gonna get a Shan blindside. I think Shan is kind of the villain. She wants to play a villainous role, but I think she's gonna be hoisted by her own petard. I think she's gonna be outmaneuvered by the others that are in her alliance. We didn't get to hear a lot from her other than her one like evil person confessional. We didn't hear a ton from Shan at all in this episode. We know she's a pastor. We know she has an Italian background. We don't know a lot about her family and her motivations. So I thought we got a pretty one-sided kind of like strategic bot approach from Shan, which it's great. I like her as a character. I cheer for her, but I just don't see it as a winning edit. But for her visibility and for that theme music, I have her as high as 9. 10, I have Obochie. We didn't get a lot from Obochie this episode. He was a neurosurgeon. We got a bit of a background about the COVID narrative. We got his kind of analysis of that savvy strength. We saw him talk to Evie, so he seems to be well integrated with his tribe. But we didn't get a lot more from Obochie. We didn't really understand why he decided specifically to vote for Abraham, which we should have gotten if he probably is the winner. But I think he might be an important character because we did get his backstory. 11, I have Ricard. People have Ricard in the top 4. A lot of people have Ricard in the top 4. his content seems situational. I felt like we got his backstory to understand potentially why he disagreed with Jeff on the "come on in, guys" comment. And then outside of that, he was seen to be incorrect. He sided with Sarah. We get some of the negative, evil stares in the background. He kind of throws shade at JD. JD's going. JD doesn't go. You're not. This is the issue. You're never wrong in your first episode, and Ricard was wrong. And so the fact that people have him as a winner when he was so wrong, and we didn't get an edit at all about why he voted against Sarah, I don't see how he has a redeemable edit. I think he's going to be a player. He might be a villain. He might play. And I think him and Shan are going to have some type of downfall story. One of them are going to go from the other. And that's why that narrative is being built up. But I don't see Ricard having a winning game. He's down at 11, which is, higher than 5 others because he has that visibility. And I think he still has some upside. Mainly because we were given that, content about his family. And his husband and his daughter, and there's a lot going on. We understand who Ricard is. But losing Sarah doesn't look good for him. 12 is Lyanna. We didn't get a lot from Lyanna this episode. I have her, I'm looking at my confessional counts, and I do it through like a period, colon, exclamation point. She's all periods. We didn't get a lot of big confessionals from her. No real winner quotes, nothing real strategic. But she seems to be kind of in the mix. Nothing's really negative, but just we had a lot of other players more well edited. She's down here at 12 almost by a default. 13 is Brad. I like Brad. Brad seems like a nice guy. We got his narrative about his father passing away recently, and his bloodied hand, how he was a cattle rancher. We didn't get a lot from him strategically, and he was involved in the strategy. The Green Tribe was really focused on Brad. He was a potential boot, not JD. We should have heard more from him. He got a bit of negativity from his comment about it should either be Sarah or Shan. I like Brad. I think he still has upside. I'm not eliminating anybody, really, after this first episode. So I have him as 13, but we'll see how he develops and if him and JD can really build a bond moving forwards. 14, I have Nasir. I love Nasir. Nasir has this amazing first quote when he's on the boat about how he learned English through Survivors from season 21. So I guess Boston Rob kind of helped teach him Survivor. So he's a fan. He was seen as the person who made the worst strategic decisions in the episode, bar none, really. Worse than Abraham or Sarah, where he actively tried to throw shade at the strongest people on his team. Was he correct? Maybe. But the way he went about it, not very good. Nobody really came to his defense. Nasir has been seen as a bit of a pariah. We didn't really get much more specific content or confessionals from him other than that first boat clip. So he's down pretty low for me. 14. 15 is Heather, almost just because we didn't hear much from her. We got Heather on the boat chatting about how she watched it with her boyfriend and husband and her kids. And we got one small confessional from her afterwards, but we don't understand where Heather fits in the Nasir drama. We didn't really see Heather play a huge role in the challenge either. So 15, because if Heather's the winner, we should have heard more from her. And 16, I have Deshawn, unfortunately. And so Deshawn's the medical student. We didn't really get any real big confessionals from him the entire episode. We didn't really hear from his views on the Savvy versus Strength. We didn't hear from his views we heard from his view briefly when the Nasir thing, and that was the one time we did hear from him. We didn't get much more from him. Again, this is part of the Blue Tribe not going, but that's part of why I have Erica and Cindy ranked very high, and Deshawn and Heather ranked very low, because at least we did get some content, some good positive content from Erica and Sydney. So Deshawn, I'm sorry, you're 16. You have time to catch up, but that's where I have you for now. So that's my Edgic ranking. Keep your eyes out for Tiffany and JD, and I think Evie and Danny are kind of there in the background as well as the main contenders this season, but those are where my eyes are at. I know people like Shannon and Ricard, I think their content was more situational and it wasn't really leading into a larger narrative, but we'll see if I'm wrong. Survivor Teek, episode 2, signing it off. Cheers, guys.